picture here.
Yeah. My wife says I look old with glasses and beard. I said, I don't care.
That's the way it is, man.
Shit, what happened?
What happens is time goes by. That's how it works.
Yeah. How long have you lived in Newport?
Oh, I've been there for since 2005, 2001. Yeah, we moved into our house 2008, but I've been there forever. And I've been up in Beverly Hills working in Newport since 2005.
You went helicoptering with Kobe when he was going back and forth? He used to helicopter in from Newport to...
He did,
yeah.
But he used to also have a whole big by name these people in, just let it run. All right, cool.
How do you take your coffee there, sir?
Oh, you can just if you got a cream and a sugar, that'd be awesome.
French vanilla creamer.
Oh yeah, perfect. That's all. Just that's fine.
Sugar.
No, just if you got that, that's perfect.
One or two.
Just one. So and Sean, do you have us coming in there pretty good? You're good on yeah, our levels are good.
Test. Yep. 1, 2, 3, 4. Test 1, 2. Is that good?
1, 2. I don't hear myself too well though, but I don't need to hear that.
Follow your string. One of the first ones closest to you. Crank yourself up.
Just need to hear a little bit more of that. 1, 2. Good. That's great. As long as you got the level. Just for you guys on Facebook, we're going to shoot some of the show live just so that you know about the podcast, which is on Podcast One. You'll see it there, podcast1.com. And it's Dr. Hockey.
Hey there.
And that's our producer, Sean Gosser.
I didn't even get myself in the shot.
How's
it going?
There you go. So we're going to put a bunch of this on the Facebook, and then if you want to hear the whole thing, you'll have to download the podcast on Podcast One. I've got John Blue with me today, who's former NHL goalie and has a different.
Wait, what? A what?
Well, he has a different job now, and so we're going to talk about that.
All
but
right.
you might have to stay tuned. I don't know if we're going to get to all that. We'll see.
All right.
So we'll crank it up here in a second when Sean is ready. And Sean, you're mic'd, so you can chat with us a little bit.
I'm on.
Does that come through in here at all or no?
What's that?
Your sound.
You can't hear me coming through the speaker?
I hear you here. Say there.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That speaker should be turned off.
It should be off.
Yeah.
Okay, but
It's
then
on.
yeah, we won't hear you in here, but that's okay.
No,
As long as I hear
okay.
you.
Got it.
Gotcha.
Sorry, Facebook.
Yeah.
You don't hear me.
It's too bad.
A couple of quick things for you. We got some credits
Okay.
for our sound pieces today. So we have Holtby, and we have our 3 fights.
And their credits are
And their credits are, you may want to jot them down. For Holtby,
hold the phone.
hold the phone.
Okay. What's the sound credit for Holtby?
NBCSN.
NBCSN. Okay, gotcha.
Pittsburgh Penguins fight NBC.
NBC. Yep.
Panthers Sabres is MSG.
MSG.
And the Wings and the Flames is SN, Sportsnet.
Sportsnet. Okay. And we have that other one from YouTube too. I don't know if you got that, but there's an additional fight that I wanted to cover too. But
You like the fights.
I like to cover the fights.
Jeez, they're
Connolly
trying-
says I'm the bloodthirstiest doctor who likes to fight anybody.
They're trying to eliminate your top fight, so we gotta stop that.
Well, I think
Jeez.
that's why I have to cover them because there are some issues with the fights. I'm not 100% condoning all the fights. So, did you find that one?
Can I, if I have a private moment with you?
Yeah. I just want to make sure you got the right one.
Yeah,
Though.
that's it.
Okay. Hang on. This is important. was a scuffle the other night that I wanted to cover at the Ducks game, but it wasn't like a fight, but it was like a moment, and I was like, you got to get that piece for me. So anyway, it'll come up.
Who's your favorite fighter?
Oh, my favorite fighter of all time, or my favorite fighter now?
All time.
All time, Rick Tocchet.
Jeez.
Hands down. Rick Tocchet was like just a badass in my book. He really was amazing. But right now, it's Milan Lucic.
Right now Lucic is
he's a surgical fighter.
Yeah.
He knows how to do it.
It is an art. Have you watched Ice Guardians yet?
No.
Oh yeah, you got to download or watch on Netflix. Ice Guardians, fantastic.
Great.
About all the tough guys in the NHL. I think Kelly Chase produced it or was a big part of it. So it's
fantastic.
Really good.
Ice Guardians. We'll have to look at that. All right. So if you're just joining us, we're getting ready to start the podcast. And this is not my plastic surgery podcast. This is my hockey podcast. I'm sure there's a plastic surgery podcast coming.
Which is more important? That's the question.
Well, for podcasting, hockey. You know, I do plastic surgery all day long. I did 2 rhinoplasties today, which we'll talk about because one of them was pretty striking. And I also am going to add a plastic surgery piece to this podcast. Today, we're going to talk about rhinoplasty versus repairing a broken nose because they're 2 different things. And I think that, as far as a podcast goes, this is just one of the most fun things that I do. I love talking about hockey. Yeah. And, I don't chase a white ball around on Sundays, and I don't have a big boat in the Newport Harbor, but I sure do love hockey. So when I'm not doing surgery and I'm not with my family, then I'm doing something around hockey, and this has just been a great hobby.
And that's ironic because I love doing surgery. And as an ex-hockey player, it's not necessarily condoned or legal, but surgery on the side is good, which is actually true with my kids. I don't do surgery, but I've got a 6-inch gash rule, and if it's anything under that or so, I just glue them together. I don't take them to forget about that.
And there's no reason to.
No reason whatsoever.
I actually gashed my finger on a coffee mug yesterday morning.
Super glue.
Glue will do.
Did you think about going to the doctor? Seriously?
I really did because it was the tip and it kept gushing blood, and I was like, I hope I didn't nip something serious here.
Well, we do know he's a golfer too.
Oh yeah.
So that says everything, Sean.
He does say he loves golf.
He loves golf.
But we're doing
I learned it today.
golfers and soccer players.
But we're doing a hockey podcast.
Yeah,
I know it's painful.
That's why he thought about going to the doctor and grabbing his finger.
Hockey players make excellent golfers.
They do.
No, I am the exception to the rule. But then again, I was exception to the rule of being a good hockey player, so I'm not either.
All right. Well, we're going to roll on this. So anybody that I can't take any questions because I'm far away from my computer. So we're going to have to we're going to have to. Well, I can't get over there to get at it and type. So if you have questions, you can put them in to me through direct message or whatever. And then again, just to introduce, this is John Blue, former NHL goalie. And he is a new job, which we're going to talk about, which is part of our conversation is what do you do after the NHL? Because a lot of people don't get as far as this guy got, and a lot of people don't have the success that he had in NHL. Well, you did. You had tremendous success.
Incredibly average.
So most people don't even get to be incredibly average in the NHL. They don't even get there.
I'll take that.
And so despite the fact incredibly average, that means that he was playing at the highest level of hockey in the world. And so after that, what do you do? And that's really what we're going to talk today about because I'm very interested in that. So anyway, we're going to start the podcast now. We've got a little lead in from Sean Gosser, our producer, and we're here at Podcast 1. So let's roll it.
Podcast 1 presents
Dr. Hockey. Each week, Dr. Jay Calvert puts his med school education to the test, along with co-host Kevin Connolly.
Manage a hockey team, I can manage a hockey team.
Carving up data, analyzing trends, dissecting player performance, and prescribe just what NHL teams need. Your appointment is now, and the doctor is in. Here's Dr. Hockey.
All right. We are back again for another episode of Dr. Hockey. And I am here today with John Blue, former NHL goalie and now pastor in Huntington Beach, California.
Yes, it's Doc. It is a natural transition from hockey to pastoring. We can talk about that. In hockey, you cuss and fight a lot.
And then here you are as a pastor.
You cuss and fight a lot, so it was perfect for me.
That's awesome. Well, I'm so great to have you
Good to
here.
be here.
And I appreciate you coming into the studio so that we could do this. It's really it's more fun to be face to face with somebody, and Skyping in works, but certainly this is the way I prefer, where we can have a real conversation and get people to learn about what it is to make it in the NHL.
Yeah, it's great to be here. It's good to be with you, and I love what you guys are doing here. I love the game of hockey, so it'll be fun.
Well, cool. Kevin couldn't be here today, and he had to go to a big meeting. He called me over the weekend and was just, he was so bummed out about it, just because he was like, I don't know, and I said, Kevin, the thing is that, none of us have time to do an additional hobby or an additional business or an additional anything. We're all so stretched, but it's our love of hockey that brings us back every week.
Absolutely. It doesn't leave you. Once you've been bitten, once you've played, experienced, it's like you're sold, you're in. And I think that's what's unique about hockey fans and hockey players. And some of the athletes that I've worked with, hockey players are unique, and they're good men, down to earth, like to have a beer, like to have a good time, and that relational aspect where you don't see it in some of the other sports.
That's for sure. I mean, look at what's going on in the NFL now. And I said, I no offense to the NFL, but it's like, you can't be grateful.
Yeah. Well, and by the way, why no offense to the NFL?
Well, because maybe I do mean offense.
There you go.
I do say every single week. I say the best use of an NFL stadium is for outdoor hockey games.
Well, there you go. And we've had some fun ones.
That's for sure.
There's
some big ones this year coming up.
Yeah, that is one thing I wish I did back in my day. Never got to play any of those. I went to the University of Minnesota. We played outdoor hockey, but never a game like that. That's amazing to watch.
It's so fun. And they always pick like amazing rivalries for those games.
New Year's Day tradition with the family, just watching that is nothing better.
The best.
Yeah.
And in fact, Zach Brown Band, I think, sang the Star Spangled Banner at like the Penguins Flyers game. It was just, it was sweet. I was like, awesome. I probably mixed a few years in there, but for my purposes, it's fine to remember it that way.
Did you go to the Dodger Stadium game last year?
I did not.
2 years ago?
I did not get to go to that one, but that would be sweet.
I heard it was a pretty good deal.
Yeah, well, I think that's the way it's going to go. And I think those stadiums are going to be used for better sports.
I like it.
So what I do on this podcast, John, just we're going to definitely talk about your career, just so that everybody knows. You were the first American goalie drafted into the NHL. Is that correct?
California.
California.
Yes, California. And there hasn't been a California goalie since me to play in the NHL.
Is that true?
There's a guy, well, actually, I'm lying to you tonight. So
oh, good. Okay, wonderful.
Yeah, it is true. It absolutely is true. There's a kid in Vancouver that's really good.
I wish
California.
you quit lying.
I'm trying.
It's making
those
hard
pastors, they got to watch them. They're a little slippery. But the kid out of name escapes me, but he's from California, and he's playing in the Vancouver system. And it looks like he will be the next guy will come up in there.
That's huge.
Yeah.
So first goalie from California drafted into the NHL.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. And that was at a time where Americans weren't very abundant in the NHL.
Yeah, and then you narrow that by being from California. We had, terrible. My dad was my first coach. He's terrible. He knew nothing about hockey. He literally couldn't skate and sat on the bench and would bark out orders my first couple of years because he didn't know how to skate.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, which really, I wonder times if I had grew up in Boston or Minnesota or Canada and had a real coach, maybe I'd have been better than incredibly average. So, but I never had a coach. I was a good athlete that hated to lose. That was it.
However it worked, it was absolutely perfect because you made it.
We made it.
That's right. So you got to just let it be the way it is. That's all you can do.
Absolutely.
So what we do is we're going to talk about stuff that's going on in the NHL, and we're going to have some time to go over your career, talk about how you got there. I know the progression because I've read everything that I could about you, but also I want to hear like what the sacrifices were that got you there, and how you made that happen. And the other side of that is when you transitioned to the NHL, what was the big difference in terms of getting yourself to play at that professional level? Because there's a huge difference.
Incredible.
So we're going to talk about that. And then we're going to talk about some of the things that are going on today in the game, and you're going to give me your opinions,
Right.
good, bad, or otherwise. And we'll go
Yeah.
from there.
Excellent.
So just coming around to the week summary, I don't know if you got some of the info I sent over to you too,
Yeah.
but just what's going on in the NHL. I don't know how much you follow this, but every week Kevin Connolly and I keep saying, well, the standings don't matter just yet. They don't matter just yet. Well, it's at the point in the season, I think, that when we're getting towards Thanksgiving, that the standings are going to start to matter.
It's starting to shake out. You're starting to see who the front runners are going to be. Now, there's always the anomalies that'll come up in the back end, but we're only, 25 games in. So, but you're starting to see the cream rise. The interesting thing with that, though, is you take a team like Nashville, last year, and you go in, out, in, out, in, out, and then all of a sudden they're all the way in. So
Big
that's
time.
what I love about hockey is you can ride this into February and later, and you got all these tight races, which is a lot of fun.
It's amazing because I remember last year watching the Calgary Flames.
Yeah.
Who they were
Yeah.
at the bottom,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden
Slowly.
they started making a run. So
Yeah.
that'll happen. But right now, I do think the standings do matter, and I think
Yes.
we're getting to the point that we got to look at that.
Well, and here's the key. You don't want to be sitting there in February or March saying, I wish that I won that game. And you look at a team like the Kings who are on a roll, or you look at Toronto and some of these teams. I remember you'd look back at times and go, damn, if we would have just held on there or there or there. And that's what you don't want, because that 1 point, 2 points that you gave away can cost you down at the end.
And every goal matters.
Every goal matters.
It does.
Every goal
In this, it's like, oh, it's a long season. There's 82 games, but all of a sudden, it's like, well, now we got to. If we're going to have any chance of being in the second season,
Yeah.
if we're going to make the playoffs, we got to do something. It's got to happen.
Absolutely.
So I want to talk about Braden Holtby. He is the number 3 star of the NHL this week, but I think he has a very notable achievement in that he is the second fastest goalie to reach 200 wins since I think it was Ken Dryden. Yeah. So I mean, Dryden did it faster, but Holtby's that's an elite status.
Absolutely. He's an elite goalie. He's in that top echelon. And it's interesting because, the naysayers will say, well, he hasn't won the cup. But you start looking and breaking down some numbers with Holtby. When you go and look at his 5-on-5 save percentage since 2011, I think it was, it's a consistent 93%.
That's
So
insane.
it's fantastic. 5-on-5. And then you look at his playoff save percentage. He is number 2 all time in save percentage. Now he's early and he's got 7 years or so in the game. So, but he's number 2 behind Tim Thomas.
Wow.
So, and let me give you some other stats. Patrick Waugh is 24. He's got 4 cups, and you got Brodeur, who's number 22 at 91.8, both of those guys, and Holtby's running at about a 93.2 clip, which is pretty stellar.
Wow. He's got an amazing career ahead still,
Yeah.
and this is going to be a big year. So we'll talk about why he's our player spotlight, and then I think we should talk about the St. Louis Blues because nobody's talking about them. This team is on fire. They make every team pay.
Yes.
Although they did have a loss last night in Calgary that I think they'd like back for sure.
Yeah,
Yager's line got hot. And
that was fun to see him.
I'm a huge Yager
Oh,
fan.
gosh.
So,
How can he not be?
I mean, he's amazing.
Yeah, unbelievable.
He's like my age and almost.
Okay, so I was at I played in the World Championships in I believe it was 89, and Yager and Bure were both there. They're both 17-year-old kids, so they had the full face mask on. They had to wear a cage. And I'm looking at where there's Yager and Bure. I'm like, who the hell are these kids? And they're playing. Bure's playing for the Russian team, Yager for the Czechs, and just these 17-year-old kids are flying around the ice. I'm going, dear God, these guys are going to be good. And they were.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
I mean, look at Yager still playing. I mean, it's
Yeah.
nuts.
Yeah.
So, we'll talk about the St. Louis Blues. I don't want to steal their thunder because they are doing great. And they are a team that nobody wants to play.
Yeah.
And now everybody, I think, is getting up for the game against the Blues because you have to. They make you pay. They got a great
Absolutely.
team.
Yes.
Tarasenko is ridiculous. And Steen and all these, they're
Peter Angelo,
they're amazing.
right down the line.
Yager, by the way, is going to have his 46th birthday this year in February.
He could be your father.
46.
Sean, that's unbelievable. Yeah.
I mean-
I mean, you're a doctor. You understand the physiological breakdown of these guys and how this
I live
freak
it.
does it. Yeah. Yeah. How he does that.
The NFL fans are all marveling at Tom Brady back there not getting touched at 40 years old playing
Oh.
quarterback. But I mean, Yager's out there banging into the boards at 46 years old. He's
Not even the
taking
same.
the same kind of beating.
No.
He's amazing. He is incredible. The
Timeless.
strength of that guy. I used to go down to the Penguins locker room with Peter Sheptak, who is the Penguins sort of their head trauma neurosurgeon, and
Yeah.
he's the guy that does a lot of the surgery for those guys. And he's also Mark Recchi's father-in-law, so
Oh,
he's
okay.
having a proud
Yeah.
father-in-law
Oh,
moment
yeah.
this weekend, isn't it?
Absolutely.
With the wrecking ball into the
Yeah.
Hall of Fame,
Yeah.
along with Solani and Korea, two local guys. So we would go down there, and you'd see Yager like working out like literally after the game. So he'd
Yeah.
finish the game and then like put up weights, and he'd work out in like his shorts and everything. And the legs on this guy were like tree trunks.
Yeah.
They were just like locomotives. I don't know how you move a guy like that, and that's why he could do what he did, because he can take the guys with him as he skates to the goal and makes
Absolutely.
punishes the goalies.
And you watch though. He understands. He has hockey sense. He understands how to angle, how to play the body well, and not take the punishment that he doesn't need to take. He's just a
That's true.
smart man.
Yeah, he is always skating to the space too.
Yeah.
And he's got that long stick.
Yeah.
He's giant. He's a big dude.
There's a video out there with him doing some of his workouts, and he wears a weight vest and weighted skates and doing his skating, and it's like, dear Lord, this guy's a freak. A lot like, Chelios was very similar.
Yes.
He went late, and Chelly was a crazy beach workouts. He would go and run the hills and sands and Redondo and all that crazy stuff, but a similar thing.
Well, I think we got to turn off the live here. So we're gonna. If you guys want to see any more of this, please tune into the podcast. It's going to drop on Friday, and thanks for tuning in.